Matt, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was yesterday. Matt Ryan, spoke with reporters, and I think one of the things that everybody's kind of curious about to see is the adjustment period, right? Going from spending the last 13, 14 seasons in Atlanta and now with a new team, new teammates. But I thought he answered things very well, and I think one of the things that stuck out to me was, he said basically after you go through what he's done in Atlanta, going through training camp the same way, his body kind of got on autopilot a little bit. And he thinks that this might be a nice boost for him because he's got to relearn everything. He's got to make those adjustments. And he thinks that, or he said that he thinks, going through these kind of changes really helps him, presents a sense of urgency. To me, if I'm a Colts fan, I'm really optimistic looking at it because it wasn't viewed in a negative light. It wasn't, these are all changes. Matt Ryan views it as a chance to get better.
No, without question. And I think you nailed it. I mean, he spent 14 years in Atlanta, and he said in Atlanta, they always had training camp at the team facility. They never went away to like a local college or, something like Grand Park, like the Colts are doing. And so this is all new to him in terms of being away and just exclusively, focusing on football away from a team facility in front of fans. And, it's like it's a different vibe. It's a different atmosphere for him where he's got to learn, where are the meeting rooms? Where's the cafeteria? Where do I go? So it's uncomfortable for him, but in a good way. And he said anytime, something, great happens, feeling uncomfortable or being pushed in a new situation, kind of precedes that. And so I think that's what he's going through right now. And hopefully that happens with this Colts team here in 2022. And, he's had to balance being the guy that's played 14 years in the NFL and has played in 2 NFC championship games and made it to a Super Bowl, has won an MVP, led the league in passing multiple years and all of that stuff while also being, the new guy. Yeah. And so I think he's balanced both of those things really well and organically. And you can just see, I mean, some guys just have this gravitational pull about them where guys just flock to him. And so he's leading by example, but he's not being, an overbearing type A guy where it's, we got to do it my way. And this is what we did in Atlanta. And this is what's worked for me. Now he's come in here and he's had an open mind. And I think Frank Reich has appreciated that. I think the players have appreciated that. And it's going to be really fun to see how that continues to manifest itself and continue to evolve. And I think it's just so far what we've seen in the limited time that we've seen Matt Ryan and the offseason workout program and then through one practice yesterday. I mean, it's just, you can see it. The guy has timing. He's got rhythm, ball placement. He's decisive. He knows where to go with the football seemingly at all times. And it's just fun to see what this offense can be with a lot of people getting involved with the intelligence that Matt Ryan has had over the course of time while also kind of tweaking what he's been successful at and marrying that with Frank Reich's offense.
And you talk about his his type of leadership. I mean, to be a successful leader, quarterback, there's always times where you probably have to be maybe vocal in a different way. But these are men and they're professionals. They're all professional men. You can't go be yelling at somebody in a huddle. You're not going to get anywhere with that. So those guys have to work together and learn how to lead those type of men. And do it successfully. And obviously the quarterbacks that have that kind of relationship, you can see that success on the field. And when you're with a new team, man, you've got to integrate. And that's probably the hardest thing is to know you're the leader when you come someplace, but have to fit into the 60 guys. Like, okay, well, I've got to seamlessly fit in with these 60 guys and be the leader. That's a tough deal.
When you play the quarterback position at any level, high school, college, the NFL, you are, by default, one of the biggest leaders on the team just because of the position that you play. But like I said, he's come in here and he's the new guy, but he's also candid in saying, I've never tried to be anything other than just myself. I'm not going to, try to, lead in a way that is fake or what I think the team needs. No, I'm just going to be myself. And like I've said, he's one of those guys that he just gets it. He knows that, the personality bonds that you form on the field and then primarily off the field, that's huge. And he's the type of guy that he can go up to anybody in the locker room and strike up a 5-minute conversation. And it might be a case where Matt Ryan and, player A, B, or C, they come from completely different backgrounds. They grew up different. They grew up in different parts of the country, different socioeconomic experiences, things like that. But Matt Ryan is so good. He can find 2 or 3 things and strike a chord with anybody. And then that's the relationship. That's the bond. That's the trust factor that you have inside the locker room that hopefully translates to the field. And so he's just trying to be himself. But at the same time, he's a guy that he's not afraid to. I mean, he's gotten the best out of Julio Jones and, players over the course of time. And he knows he's a really smart guy. So he knows what the offense is supposed to look like. And he's not afraid. And he said it yesterday. I'm not afraid to stick my foot in somebody's ass when they need it, when it's warranted. And you want to do it in a positive way, in a constructive way, where it doesn't put someone down and it doesn't create, friction or a problem on the team. You do it in a way where you just stress, I think we can get more out of you. I think you're capable of more. We need more. So follow, lead by example. But then also at the same time, you have to just back that up with great play on the field. And I think Matt Ryan has just checked every box since he's been acquired in a trade back in March.
Matt, one of the things we talked yesterday about with Bob Kravitz was, he had some concerns about the pass catchers, who's going to step up at the wide receiver position for the Colts and really help out Matt Ryan. And we talked about last week, obviously, Jonathan Taylor piling up 1,800 yards is good statistically, but you think that the closer he is to maybe that 1,000-yard range, probably the better off the Colts are in the long run. And so I'm just curious, who are you expecting or who do you think has the potential to kind of break out at that wide receiver position and can maybe have a big year in 2022?
Yeah, I think, obviously that's one of the biggest storylines of camp. And, we've only had one practice so far. It wasn't in pad. So I think it's a little bit too early to say, there's 1 or 2 guys that's the leader in the clubhouse in terms of, taking over one of those back end roster positions at wide receiver. I will say, it is somewhat concerning for his own sake. Personally, Mike Strawn is starting the year on PUP. He's dealing with a little bit of a knee injury. And according to Chris Ballard the other day, he might be out, a few weeks. Might get him back towards the end of training camp. We might see him here towards the end of Grant Park. And that's obviously concerning for him because he missed all of the offseason workout program last year. He had a great camp, but then was sort of given that, NFL version of a redshirt year where really didn't see him a lot on the field after week 2 and kind of reverted to the practice squad. And so it was a big jump for him because he was coming from a Division II school that was obviously affected by the pandemic. So he didn't play a whole lot of organized football from 2019 to 2021. And then you make that gigantic jump and just in terms of competition from D2 college football to the NFL. So he admittedly had a lot to learn. The learning curve was pretty steep for him. I think he's got that under control. But if you're not on the field, obviously that doesn't help you. And then, he's competing with other guys like Desmond Patman and Kiki QT and DeMichael Harris, Ashton Doolin, just to name a few. So, there's 1 or 2 wide receiver jobs open on this team, but there's about 8 or 9 guys competing for them. And so obviously it's a crowded room, and every rep, every practice, those joint practices with the Lions coming up in a few weeks, the preseason games, it's all one big puzzle. It's all one big equation, and everything kind of matters and adds up to the final, your final grade, if you will, on the test to see if you can make this team. So it's still kind of early yet. We'll see what, how it kind of evolves once we put on the pads, and hopefully we get a better gauge of who's standing out, this time next week, if you will.